All right, everyone, let's begin. First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Tristan Polito, and I'm the lead staff here on the Refrigerant Management Program. I'm sure quite a few of you have talked to me at one point or another in the past. And with me as well is Krishma Betcha, and she'll also be assisting me in presenting this as well. And let's start off with some housekeeping first. The presentation will be recorded, and a link to the audio will be made available later on our website. Not the R3 website, but our actual CAR website. For now, I'll be muting everyone. If you have a question, please, in the GoToWebinar page, click on the raise hand icon, and I will answer your questions as they are received. Additionally, staff will also be available to answer questions typed in the GoToWebinar question box. Also, when you type a question, only yourself and we will be able to see it, no one else will, if that makes people feel more comfortable. And then remember as well, you can always call us on the RMP helpline at 916-324-2517, or you can email us at RMP, as in Refrigerant Management Program, at arb.ca.gov with any questions that you may have. So let's begin. So let's start with our agenda. First, we'll do a brief overview of the Refrigerant Management Program, as well as a brief overview of R3, our Refrigerant Registration Reporting System. And then we'll kind of get into the meat of everything, which will be a demonstration of the updates for both tabs 2, tab 3, tab 4, and tab 5. And finally, we'll have a section for questions at the end.
Starting off with some commonly used terminology, GWP stands for Global Warming Potential. For the purposes of the regulation, high GWP refrigerants are those with a global warming potential of greater than 150. We classify systems into three size categories: small, medium, and large. Small systems contain 50 pounds of refrigerant but less than 200 pounds. Medium systems contain 200 or more but less than 2,000. And large systems contain 2,000 or more pounds of refrigerant. We also classify facilities or physical location into size categories. The size of your facility is determined by the largest system at that location. For example, your facility has three systems, and one is 60 pounds, 600 pounds, and 6,000 pounds. One of those is respectively small, medium, and large, but your facility will be considered a large because of your largest system.
Let's kind of do an overview of the RMP regulation now. So all aspects of the Refrigerant Management Program are in effect today. The rule did start in 2011, and the main focus on it was on leak repairs and inspections in order to attempt to limit the amount of refrigerant that escapes from refrigeration systems. On average, complying with the regulation can save companies money due to the reduced refrigerant purchases, since less is lost if the systems are promptly repaired, and there also may be less product loss because of the reliable refrigeration systems. So the RMP rule also applies to not just stationary non-residential facilities with refrigeration systems containing more than 50 pounds, but it also affects refrigeration distributors, wholesalers, and reclaimers, as well as technicians who service, install, and repair refrigeration systems or air conditioning equipment.
Some of the key requirements for RMP has been in effect since January of 2011 and applies to all facilities of any size. This includes prompt leak repairs, which need to occur within 14 days of the initial detection of the leak. Records also need to be retained on site, and required service practices are also in effect. Leak inspections are required, but the frequency of the leak inspections are dependent on the size of the system. Small systems must have an annual leak inspection, which should occur around the same time every year. On the other hand, medium systems must have one leak inspection every 3 months, and large systems must have an automatic leak detection system, also known as an ALD, on any component that is located indoors. Any part of the system that is located outdoors need to be inspected for leaks every 3 months, similar to the medium systems. Medium and large facilities are also required to submit an annual report and pay a fee once the report has been submitted. Refrigerant distributors, wholesalers, and reclaimers need to know records of all refrigerant transactions and provide us with an aggregate totals on an annual report.
Now that we've covered the basics of the RMP regulation, we're going to kind of move on to our R3 refrigerant registration reporting system. And this is a tool I'm pretty sure many of you are well familiar with. R3 is a tool that is used to complete facility and system registration and any reporting that is needed, as well as paying the annual fee implementation. Right now, I'm going to provide an overview of the R3 tool and how to work through the new updates. Now, the first change that many of you have possibly noticed or will notice is going to happen on tab 2, refrigeration systems. And the first thing you may realize is the only tabs you can click on are tab 1 and tab 2. The reason being that with these changes, we wanted to have companies update their refrigeration systems in tab 2. And the first thing you need to do in order to update them is to choose either the refrigeration system or click the update button on the bottom right. Once that's done, you'll be able to pull up and see the different sections that need to be updated highlighted in red. For just about every system, the operation status and the location will need to be updated, but it is possible for some other systems to update their equipment type and the refrigeration type. And we'll go into each of these individually as well. What a finished update might look like is this, where you've updated the operational status, you've updated the location, and along with the operational status, you will add a date. Now, here's where the operation statuses will look different. As you can see, we pretty much eliminated a majority of these operation statuses. There's a couple reasons for this. Number one, the rule didn't really specify anything except these 4 operation statuses. And the other ones don't end up being quite relevant to the rule and just add confusion. Some of them even seem to have some overlap as well. That was our reasoning in making this change. Now, some notes to be aware of when you're updating your operation status. Even if you had a normal operation before, you'll still need to update that and choose it again. Since we did not have proper data to begin recording this information, we need people to choose their option again. If your system already had the permanent shutdown and removal option, that will not need to be updated. That will continue to show for that system. Now, when you enter an operation status, as you can see on this tab as well, it will ask to enter a date. And when that date is entered, it will automatically allow it to be updated to the date that the system began operation. Additionally, as you can see here on this system, the date of operation is 6/8/2016, and that was auto-updated from date of installation. So for most facilities, we will update that for you. If there's a reason that there was a break in the operation status, such as it was installed in 2016, but it was mothballed soon afterwards for a couple of years, then you'll want to do the most recent date that it was changed to the normal operation status. And in case you're wondering when you fall under one of these categories, the way we're looking at these definitions is if the system no longer exists at the facility, it will be under the permanent shutdown and removal option. If the system exists at the facility, but there's no refrigerant inside of it for more than 60 days, it'll be under the mothball status. If the system has refrigeration in it year-round, but it only operates seasonally, then they'll use the seasonal operation. Everyone else will just use normal operation. Next, the location. Now, under location, we just have 3 simple options to choose from: indoors, outdoors, and partially indoors and outdoors. The reason that we're having this is going to help companies with their ALD compliance, since an ALD may be necessary for large systems that are indoors. This will help the system differentiate between people who may need an ALD and people who may not on their systems. If you have a system that's under 2,000 pounds and you do not plan to have an ALD associated with the system, its location is not going to be relevant for the reporting purposes. Additionally, there was one category we did remove, and this was the question, does this system have an ALD? We've removed this option because it was something that we're moving into a new ALD category as well. For equipment type, This is not something many people will need to change, but it may come up. We've kept the freezer and refrigeration options on this, and a majority of refrigeration systems registered with us have chosen these options. So a majority of people going through these updates will not have to worry about this. But for a few people that chose some of these older options that have been slashed out, they will need to change what their equipment type option is. Now, the reason for doing this was to, A, assist us in regulating the rule better, as well as allow people to identify if they are registering a system, such as an air conditioning unit, that does not need to be registered with us. If they do such a thing, the system won't reject them, but it'll tell them that the unit's exempt and no reporting is required on it. And there will be an example of this later of how that will look. And for people registering new equipment, kind of wondering what their system will fall under, we do have a flow chart here that will help describe what your system will fall under, depending on if it's doing direct cooling, uses a secondary loop, if it's for air conditioning, or if it's for refrigeration or industrial process. Overall, though, it should be pretty simple, since a chiller is used for usually the use of a secondary liquid. You'll be in chiller land there, and depending on how you're using your chiller, either for refrigeration or air conditioning. Otherwise, if it's for direct cooling, you'll just look at the temperature class to kind of determine if it's an air conditioning unit or if it's being used for refrigeration. Anything that's used for both AC and refrigeration, such as an integrated unit, would be regulated by us, but we do have that option now if people want to choose that. And for the refrigerant type, we had one option called R, Other Not Listed. A few people had used this option, but we've removed this option because we've taken much time in updating our refrigerant list to include nearly any type of refrigerant that we know of that exists today. Now, if you're going through and adding a system and the refrigerant type does not appear on our list, please contact the RMP staff and we'll be happy to add it to the list. One thing to note is if you're running into this problem, it's possible that someone else may have already, or that someone else will soon run into this problem as well. So next, we'll go to tab 3 for ALD services and systems. The first thing you'll notice when you click on this tab, which will be open once you complete tab 2, is that it will just ask you a basic question. Does this facility have an automatic leak detection device? If you answered no, it opens tabs 4, 5, and 6, and you can completely continue on. Even if you answer yes, the tabs will open as well, but it will prompt you to enter in your ALD system and to ask you for your ALD leak detection system servicing. Now, if you make a mistake and you hit yes when you meant no, or if you hit no when you meant yes, if you go to a different tab and come back to it, you'll be given the option again, so you'll be able to fix that error if it happens. Additionally, we've moved all the ALD calibration information to here as well, just to try and keep all the ALD information together. And the screen will now prompt you when an ALD calibration is due for the year. One of the small features we've added is when you're entering an ALD system, we've changed it to a checkbox system at the bottom. This will help make it more clear which system is actually using the ALD, as well as allowing you to link multiple systems to a single ALD with greater ease. Otherwise, adding an ALD is not changed. For the servicing type, we've made it quite simplified for ALDs. There's only 2 types of records you can add, an audit and a calibration, the date of service, and that's pretty much it. And this, again, will be where you enter all your ALD information as opposed to tab 4. Moving on, tab 4 is where we will have our new leak inspection service tab. The format for this will mostly stay the same on the top section. All your inspection, repairs, anything like that will still show as is. But at the bottom, we put a new compliance checklist, and this is to help assist with you guys understanding how you're doing on your compliance. But before we go on that one, we're going to look at the slightly different types of servicing records that can be entered. So the first thing we did, though, was consolidate what our new leak inspections will look like. And this page shows, for the purpose of added or removed charge, it will mimic what type of service you have, unless you choose a leak inspection. Here's how we've consolidated our leak inspection options. We've taken all the other options away and just have leak inspection. This was done just to remove clutter. A lot of times people might put an annual leak inspection and then a monthly and then a quarterly. It doesn't really matter for our purposes, but the system will just check to see if you have the correct amount of leak inspections for each system. For the rest of the different options, they look like this now. Obviously, the automatic leak detection, system maintenance, and audit has been moved to tab 3. We've left the retrofit option there, but we've removed options such as emergency servicing, other routine service, and other leak inspection. Most of these were either vague or didn't have to do with the refrigerant. Again, the goal of this rule is to help reduce leaks in refrigeration maintenance. And if there's any maintenance going on in these systems that doesn't directly involve the refrigerant, it's not something that the rule really cares about, and it's not something that needs to be reported. So we've helped remove these. We've kept the leak repair, and we've kept the seasonal adjustment. We've added the final refrigerant removal and the initial refrigerant charge just to help differentiate when refrigerant's being added because of a leak and when refrigerant's being added or removed because the system's just coming online or just going offline. And then we've added topping off as well. It's not something we recommend, but it is something specified in the rule. Then when we go back down to our refrigerant system compliance checklist on tab 4, we can now see kind of what I was alluding to earlier. So on this example, you'll see that this facility only has 2 systems, a medium and a small. So the compliance checklist will show them how many leak inspections that they're looking for that year. And as you'll see for the small, it's just 1 annually it's asking for, while on the medium one, it's asking for 1 every 3 months. Then for an example that I pulled, here's what a company's done recently for 2019. Since this company adds their leaks inspections as they happen, they've already satisfied for their 2 medium systems for the year, and they'll get that green checkbox. Their last system that they registered here was an AC system, so when they marked it as being an air conditioning unit, the system automatically knew that it was exempt and gave it the green checkbox to go, as there was no reporting required on that system. The last change that we're making is to tab 5, which is a pretty small change here. But when filing and not able to upload all your records as they don't exist, there are options to allow you to mark that you don't have these options available in order to continue. The top one will be for service records, which is in tab 4. The middle one will be for your ALD servicing, which is in tab 3. And then the final one will be for refrigerant purchase and use, which is tab 5 and just below here. One thing to note that without the green checkboxes on tab 4, you won't be able to file your annual report unless you check one of these boxes. And if you do have the all green to go from tab 4, you won't have these boxes available to check. And then some final notes just before we open it up for questions is these changes will only be necessary for this reporting year, 2019. Once 2020 comes around, these changes will be saved and there will be nothing extra that will be needed to do going forward. The older format will remain for legacy purposes. So if you're looking at your 2018 data, 2017, 16, all the way back even to 2011, you'll see that it all looks like the same old format. Late reporters, though, will need to use the new format for prior years. So if a report hasn't been filed for 2018, the system will ask you to use the new format for 2018. We're updating our XML along with this as well. The new XSD code is live on the website as well. And of course, if you run into any XML issues, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And one final note that's not on here as well is these changes will not apply to any reclaimer, distributor, or wholesaler reporting. That will stay the same. So if anyone was worried about that, that's not something that needs to be worried about. We'll now unmute everyone and leave it open for questions. Actually, before we let people jump in, I'll answer a couple questions that we got on the webinar. First one I got was on tab 2, does operational status, date, and location need to be manually input by a user before they can do the batch upload, or will the user be able to input this data as part of the batch upload? That's an excellent question, and we're having it so that that information can be updated on the batch upload. The only thing that will not be updated on the batch upload is actually filing the annual report. I know for some of these companies, there's a lot of facilities and a lot of systems, so we kind of wanted to take that burden off if we could. The next question we have is, When you have an event that spans multiple dates, example, a leak that takes multiple days to repair, what date should be recorded under the service date? That's an excellent question. And I would say the final date is the date that should be used, as if a repair takes 3 days to do it, it's not officially repaired until that final date. Then the next question we have is, there are some required fields in R3 that are included in the XML and will require users to manually enter the information. Are there any plans to include these in the XML? One example would be the greater than 14-day leak repair exemption. We do have plans to update that at a later time, but currently right now we don't have any plans to look at that. I'm seeing that I'm delinquent on a leak inspection, even though I've already uploaded leak inspection data from the system. Update appears to have a bug. Yeah, contact us specifically on this. There's usually a method to the madness on this. We'll take a look to see why that may not be uploading. If it truly is something that's going wrong, we do have the power to override, and kind of bringing these issues to our attention helps make the system stronger in the long run, so do not hesitate. Then the next question we have here is, what if you have a system that was over 50 pounds, but new information has come in to indicate that it was an error and it was under 50 pounds? Would this not be a retrofit scenario, just an error correction? What would be the correct status to give to the system? It does not appear that there is any option to delete it from your system. That is correct. A retrofit usually implies that you're changing out the refrigerant. So in this scenario, this would not be a retrofit, but it was more of just an error of the size of the system. Anytime a system has the wrong size information, reach out to us. We'll take care of updating the size. And such as in this example, if the size classification may make it from a large to a medium or medium to a small or to exempt, we'll take care of handling that as well. Generally, if it's a normal change that needs to happen, we ask that the users do that, but if it's a mistake that needs to be corrected, reach out to us. We'll make the change for you guys. The next question, are there any new enforcement or penalties for non-compliance? No, everything should be the same. This should just help people understand when they are in compliance, when they're not in compliance, and assist us as well. Next question we have here. Can you do a drop-down menu to keep all the technician info? I think that's a great idea. So go ahead and shoot us an email with that idea, and it's something we'll consider. We're always looking to update the system and make it more user-friendly, so we're not opposed to new ideas such as this. So it looks like on slide 25, so we'll go back to slide 25. Will the requirements and green checks update to that YTD? I'm not sure what YTD is short for.
Year to date.
Oh. For example, if you have 2 records entered for a large system by June, it will show as compliant. But if you log in during July, will there be a red box for missing Q3 leaks and inspection? No. So it's going to be based on an annual year. So it's going to show you pretty much non-compliant until you do your final reporting. This example had just entered in some inspections for December. So that's what made them compliant for the year, but it won't let you know as you're adding quarterly inspections whether you're good for the quarter or not. It will be on a yearly basis. The next question, looks like we go all the way back to slide 6. Keeping of refrigerant records on site. What information data must be stored and provided on site? In what format? Handwritten, service, contractor's notes, sufficient? So for records on site, pretty much all the records that you would enter into R3 need to be kept on site. It doesn't specify how the notes need to be kept. So contractor's notes, handwritten, kind of any generic receipt that you would get from a contractor will suffice for that. These requirements also go to small systems, even though they don't have to report as well. And finally, on that question, one of the questions we do get when we do visit sites is, does it have to be paper or can it be electronic? We don't mind it being stored electronically, but it should be readily available. So if it's an electronic format where you pull up a computer, you go to a program, you launch that, and within a few minutes you can show the data, that will be sufficient for our purposes. Then the next question, and I appreciate all these questions, everyone. If my large unit has an ALD, do I still need to do quarterly leak checks? No. Well, the question is, it depends. If the large system's entirely indoors, the ALD requirement will remove any requirement to do leak inspections. If you have a medium or small system and you have an ALD and the system's entirely indoors as well, that would also negate the need to do any quarterly leak inspections or annual as well. Now, if part of the system is outdoors, that outdoor part will need to have leak inspections as well. And when you're choosing the option for the location, whether it's indoor, outdoors, or both, the system will look at that and then determine what kind of compliance they're going to need going forward. Now, if I have a freezer that is connected to two different refrigerants, each refrigerant has two circuits and each circuit is 30 pounds, each refrigerant for the freezer is 120 pounds, do we consider this a medium or small? Let's read this one again. So we have a freezer connected to two different refrigerants, and each refrigerant has two circuits, and each circuit is 30 pounds. So altogether, this looks like a 120-pound system. Each refrigerant has 60 pounds, and out of those 60 pounds, it's divided into 30 each. If those 30 each run on completely independent loops, the best way I think of it is if one goes down, the other one still can operate fully without any issues, and there's no valve to connect the refrigerant to them, then they would be completely separate loops, and you would have what looks like four 30-pound systems. If the two 30-pound systems are somewhat connected, even if it's a off and on valve, then those would be two 60-pound systems. I've never heard of a single system being able to handle two refrigerants, so at minimum, it looks in this scenario you have two 60-pound systems and possibly four 30-pound systems, depending on the circuit you have there. And feel free to reach out to us as well later on if you have any questions, and we can go through that specifically. Now, we were asked if the slides will be available after today, and the presentation will be available, but not the slides. For small systems, reporting is not required. However, there is a leak inspection field in the online system. Leak inspections are required annually for small systems. Is leak inspection information required to be entered online for small systems? So small systems are interesting because if the whole facility only has smalls and nothing else, that facility does not need to report anything. But if the facility has at least one large or medium system, then all systems at the facility need to be reported, including the smalls. So at times, and let's go back to this example that we had here, where we had the medium and the small. Since this facility has a medium system, they're required to report all the systems at the facilities, including smalls that may need to be there. So in this scenario, yes. But if the facility only had a small system, they would not need to report anything. Next question is, what is the minimum capacity to register? What is the minimum capacity to register? Okay.
Slide 25.
Sweet. On slide 25, will the green checkboxes from slide 25 remain green if the date range exceeds 90 days? Meaning, will the date range affect the green checks? Yes, the dates will affect the green checks. But the parameters on them are not a strict 90 days. We do have some leeway if leak inspection was done, let's say January 1st, and then there was one done March 2nd. The system's not going to ding you for that. We do provide a little leeway. But if you had a leak inspection entered January 1st, January 2nd, January 3rd, and January 4th, the system would not give it a green checkbox. So it does check to see how spread out the inspections are. Then on the next question we have here, as you mentioned earlier in the presentation, for certain appliances, regulations require that the leak inspections be performed once every 3 months. Can you please provide the acceptable range for once every 3 months? Past guidance provided by CARB has said both every 90 days plus or minus 20 and every 90 days or less. So kind of the analysis we take on the leak inspections is, I know my predecessors have tried to do this plus or minus X number of days. The rule doesn't really provide for anything like that, and the rule just states 3 months. Doesn't specify kind of what the full integer is. So we look at it kind of more as, if it's 3.5 months, we'll round that down to 3 months, and that's how we're kind of looking at it. And it's not a solid plus or minus 20 days, but it does give some wiggle room for people that, as I was kind of alluding to earlier, that we're not here to punish somebody if they're a day late on their leak inspection or if they're, a couple days premature. And we built into the system to have some wiggle room with that. So we almost have it going up to 3.9 months. And so with that logic, it is possible for someone to have 3 leak inspections spread out perfectly in the year and still pass for that year as well. Then one of the final questions we have here, please repeat when I should do every 3 months or every year a leak check. If the system is between 50 pounds and 200 pounds, it would be an annual leak inspection. If the system is 200 pounds or greater and less than 2,000, it will be a leak inspection every 3 months. If the system's 2,000 pounds and over, it will need an ALD, and it will also need a leak inspection every 3 months for the sections that are outdoors. The slide that showed the refrigeration inventory reporting, one for the regulated refrigeration system and author row for the other refrigerants, please explain what CARB is looking for here. I believe, is this the tab 25 as well? Refrigeration system. I'm not sure I understand this question. We'll come back to this one in a little bit while we kind of get clarification on that. For the refrigerant purchase and use information on tab 5, does this need to include info for all systems, not just for info on the regulated systems, or only info for registered systems? That's a great question, and the rule actually specifies on that refrigerant purchase and use is for all systems, including your air conditioning as well. But it's an aggregate total. So we're not asking you to say, how much was charged in this and that. It's just how much refrigerant was charged in the whole facility for that year, including your AC. Good question. Related to the leak inspections, what is the acceptable leeway? I think we kind of hit this already. Sorry, Ted. But yeah, some integer of 3 months will work there. We moved into a new facility earlier this year, summer. Is our reporting deadline March of 2020? That's absolutely correct. And there's a good chance as well, if you moved into a new facility, that the old facility was probably registered with us as well. So feel free to shoot us an email or contact us, and we'll kind of get that old facility transferred over to you so that you can kind of start with something as opposed to entering everything in. And that kind of goes to anyone else that acquires a new facility. More likely than not, it was probably registered with us, and we can get it transferred over to you. With the same scenario, if each circuits are 60 pounds, the total refrigerant is now 120 pounds for each refrigerant, i.e. the total of both refrigerants is now 240 pounds. Will this qualify as medium or still small? If there's 2 refrigerants, and this is going back to that circuit question, if you have 2 refrigerants now, each one's 120, that combine to be a 240 circuit. Again, I don't know of a system that can process 2 refrigerants at the same time, so they're probably separate circuits. So I would say that you're looking at 2 small systems. There's been a few times in an inspection that somebody's had a registered medium system, and they've actually had 4 150-pound independent circuits all right next to each other. So I've had to follow the piping, and sure enough, none of them are connected at all. And I've kind of given the guy the news that you actually should be registered as a small, not a medium. Okay, that seems to be all the questions right now. And I think we've unmuted people as well. So if you have any questions besides what I've answered here, feel free to chime in now. Okay, go for it.
I have a quick question for you. So with our system, with the Verisay system, it used to be that when you recorded a retrofit, it kind of created a second system. So there was a pre-retrofit and there was a post-retrofit. And that was kind of how that was being recorded in your system as well. And when we would go through and update the system status for those, we would just go and mark the pre-retrofit ones as inactive. but that status has been taken away now. So what do we do with the second one for all of the old systems?
So what we've seen with our retrofit, and I know it's something we're still working on making work better, but all entries for the old one need to be done before you retrofit. So let's say we retrofit this one in June of 2019. Any servicing records on that need to be entered, and then you do the retrofit, and then you kind of do everything after June on the entries.
That's fine, but I'm talking about older ones. So these are retrofits that were done, say, in 2014 or 2015, because all of those systems now we have to put a new status in. And if, for example, an inspection got recorded before the retrofit did, then that prevents you from being able to list that one as a shutdown. So I'm not quite sure what to do with those right now.
It's a system that was retrofitted in 2015. What's the operation status did it have before?
So it probably had inactive before. I don't, have a copy of what it looked like before you guys made the updates to your system.
Sure.
But kind of the situation is the retrofit happened in, let's see, I think the retrofit happened in 2014, but we had leak inspections recorded after that for that one. So because of how it gets split up, that system was getting its inspections in, the timely fashion it was supposed to. It's just because I can't mark it inactive now, the date that I would have to put in order for me to do it as kind of like a shutdown would have to be after the actual date that retrofit happened.
Is the system actually still at the location?
Yep, it's still there. It's just.
Does it have refrigerant inside of it?
Yeah, it was retrofitted. So it's one system, but it looks like two just because of how the VeriSay system used to track retrofits.
Okay. Go ahead and independently reach out to us on that so I can look at it specifically.
Okay.
Sorry about that. It'd probably help to look at your system and kind of troubleshoot it with you.
Yeah, probably would.
No worries on that.
Okay.
Anyone else have a question? We have the room for a little bit, so I'll hang around for a few minutes in case anyone gets another question. We don't really have any more written in. I was told someone was looking for the flowchart, so I went ahead and put that up. And if you want the flowchart as well, reach out to us and we can email it to you. I think we'll end this here. I appreciate everyone for taking the time. I apologize for the technical difficulties we had. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. I'll go ahead and put our contact up one last time. Anything generic can probably go to our hotline, and if it's something specific, go ahead and give me a call directly. Otherwise, yeah, thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.